online world really started from the United States, and up until recently, we were all happy to merely be a part of the world. That's in fact where the rules were set. The US, which controls all the root servers through which all the information passes, and these are of course the servers on which we operate as well. All the big tech companies, Google, Facebook, Twitter, Yahoo, all of these are big changes in the online game. They all came from there, and if you think about it, there's a hell of a lot of power in the hands of one state. And perhaps if the likes of Bradley Manning and Snowden, the insiders, hadn't turned into whistleblowers and blown the lid of how the US was violating citizens' privacy and snooping on, well, almost everyone, we would have all continued blissfully unaware of the possible misuse of this power. And Brazil, France, Mexico, India, as we speak, are part of a 4-day conference which is underway in Bali, which is called the Internet Governance Forum, which is discussing all issues of privacy, security, surveillance, diversity, and how various governments are working with each other, and how the main players of the online game are changing, and who should be allowed to make the rules. And some favor a framework at the UN level, others say United States is still our best bet. So that's what we discuss on the social network today. US snooping sparks a UN debate, and that's a hashtag with IGF 2013, which of course stands for the Internet Governance Forum. Let's quickly introduce our panelists for the day. In the studio, we're joined by Jayajit Bhattacharya, who is the president of the Center for Digital Economy Policy Research. We're joined from Bali by Subi Chaturvedi, who's a professor at LSR, and she is a participant at that Internet Governance Forum, and will be talking to us a lot about what's actually going on there. And we're also joined by Mr. Matthew from Bangalore, who is a cybersecurity expert. So, Subi, I'm going to have to start with you first. You know, all of this talk that we've been having in studios, you know, you've come so many times in our show. We've talked about internet and where it's going, how the rules are changing. What's the real thread of thought happening in Bali as we speak?
Thank you, guys. I think it's a fantastic opportunity to be here at Bali. As a member of the multi-stakeholder organizing committee, we've put this together. It is where conversations around internet and governance are taking place at a time which is a crucial time in history. And mind you, none of us and nobody in our right minds would ever support government surveilling citizens, however narrowly, without oversight. The questions, of course, being asked are accountability, transparency, bottoms-up stakeholder processes, and how do we privilege multi-stakeholderism in internet and governance. I think it is an important time to be here because, as the theme itself suggests, it is about building bridges and how multi-stakeholderism and approach can lead to a process which can enshrine and ensure an internet which is open, safe, secure, and sustainable. I think the conversations that you just mentioned and attributed to are very fair. It's important to ask tough questions, but do we need an additional body, or do we need an additional system for governance? My answer to that would be a clear, sharp no. Why do I say that? The options, where are the options? When we talk about conversations around internet and governance, we have a system. And though there are problems with that system, there are good problems to have and to solve. And this is the right platform to solve those problems. When we talk about a body which might be intergovernmental, as the alternatives that are being suggested seem to be and seem to dwell towards, I have an issue with that, because you and I are not going to be in the room. It could be a multilateral approach where governments will speak with governments. That is the alternative that we're looking at. When we talk about processes that are democratic, when we talk about processes which are truly bottoms-up, inclusive, multi-stakeholder, we have an opportunity to at least be part of this conversation vis-a-vis ICANN, vis-a-vis IGF, which is again a United Nations initiative. What we have is the entire world coming together at this platform to ask the questions. And why is it that we need to be there? And why is it that governments come to this platform? It's because this is where they engage with human rights activists, they engage with the technical community, they engage with the academia, and they engage with the people who make these.
All right, Subi, I'm just going to interrupt you just for a second, and I'm going to throw that across to Jayajit. Jayajit, from what I understand from what Subi is saying, that we're in a space where we now have a choice between either looking at a somewhat active participation in ICANN, which is also which is also in the United States, or we have the option of letting governments or states decide, at a platform like the United Nations, which is which is separate and independent, but only the states decide, as opposed to we having some sort of a stakeholding in ICANN in the United States. Those are the two options we're looking at.
Now, let's just step back and see what exactly the problem is. What do we mean by internet governance? What are we talking about? There are two key parts to internet governance. One is who gives you these URLs like www.ndtv.com, who really allocated that? That's governance. The second part of it is what kind of technology will work on the internet. That's another part of governance. Neither of these parts are actually controlled by India or any other country, but both are done by US and mostly US corporates, and that's where people start getting a little hassled up that these are commercial values.
Yeah.
NDTV.com has its own value, and similarly all URLs have value. So there's a commercial part to the discussion. There's also a strategic part to the discussion, that what if tomorrow US decides to delete the .in from the root servers,
yeah.
right? So the entire economy of India will get very significantly impacted. Are we comfortable living in that regime? And therefore, the key points that Subi pointed out are quite valid, that if that's not what we're comfortable with, then what are the options, or can we fix what already exists?
Yeah.
Now, what already exists is that there's an organization called ICANN, which works under a contract from the Department of Commerce and the US government, and they're the ones who are giving you the URLs in that sense. And they work on a contract which will expire in 2015, and again the contract will come up, which will be open only to US organizations. Now, India as a sovereign country, is it comfortable to be in this kind of a regime?
Because we're not technologically equipped to be able to set up our own parallel.
We don't have the technological sovereignty to have any other option. Now, that's basically what Subi is saying, that what is the option, right?
Yeah, what is the option? But that said, Mr. Matthew, if I could just bring you in, essentially, I think, while we talk about, of course, all of these are really big concepts and very dense for a lot of the viewers. But if you had to break it down really simply and say, essentially, what do people like you and me want? We want basically a net space, an online space where you and I can chat for free, do what we want for free, without worrying about where that information is going to be, where that information is going, who's looking on that information, and how are they going to misuse it. We just want a space that's free and democratic, which is what was the idea of the internet.
Yeah, but is that possible? That's what you're talking is a utopian world. Every communication can be tapped. But here the topic I thought was governance of internet. And as one of the panelists brought out, it has serious issues in terms of both commerce as well as in terms of control. But there are several things which I think, first of all, do we need internet governance? What do we mean by internet governance? Today, ICANN is allocating URLs. Is that all internet governance is about? There are many things which need not be governed, and if governed, it makes matters worse. For example, the League of Nations collapsed. The UNO is doing a fairly decent job, but can it stop wars like in Syria or Libya or Iraq or any other place? It can't. So when you look at internet governance, I think we need to look at, one, how do we protect this nation of ours from the problems which a cyber warfare could do, which one way is to have your own servers, have your own pipes to convey the information. In terms of then, are we creating a monster government in India which will snoop on its own people? So that we can have checks and balances within the country and its own laws to prevent that kind of a thing.